Marcus Chen stepped through his front door after a grueling 16-hour shift, expecting silence and darkness. Instead, he found his CEO, yes, his CEO, on her hands and knees scrubbing his kitchen floor. The bucket beside her held soapy water. Her designer blazer hung on his second-hand chair, and when she looked up at him, her eyes weren't filled with pity. They were filled with something he couldn't quite name, something that would change everything. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back 3 weeks. Marcus Chen's alarm screamed at 4:47 a.m., 13 minutes before it was supposed to. He'd learned not to rely on the snooze button years ago. In his world, 13 minutes could mean the difference between catching the first bus and missing an entire day's wages. He moved through the darkness of his small apartment with practiced efficiency, careful not to wake his daughter. 6-year-old Emma slept in the only bedroom, her tiny body curled around a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. Marcus took the pull-out couch in the living room, though calling it living felt generous. It was more of an existing room, a surviving room. The coffee maker had died 2 months ago, so he boiled water in a dented pot and poured it over instant coffee grounds. The bitterness matched his mood most mornings, but today he added an extra spoonful. He had a feeling he'd need it. By 5:30 a.m., he was dressed in his custodian's uniform for Wellington Tech. Navy blue shirt, matching pants, both worn soft from countless washings. He checked on Emma one more time, tucking the blanket around her shoulders. Mrs. Park from 3B would come at 6:30 to get her ready for school. It cost Marcus $20 a day he couldn't afford, but what choice did he have? The pre-dawn bus smelled like industrial cleaner and broken dreams. Marcus recognized the other early risers, the nurse finishing her night shift, the baker heading to work, the security guard with tired eyes. They nodded at each other, members of an unspoken club nobody wanted to join. Wellington Tech's gleaming headquarters stood like a glass monument to success. Marcus entered through the service entrance, as he had every morning for 3 years. The building woke up in layers, first the custodians, then security, then the cafeteria staff. The executives wouldn't arrive until 9, stepping into spaces that Marcus and his crew had made spotless. "Chen, third-floor conference rooms need extra attention today," his supervisor barked. "Big client meeting at 10. Marcus nodded and headed for the supply closet. He took pride in his work even if nobody noticed, especially because nobody noticed. His father had taught him that, before the accident, before everything fell apart. "Do it right even when no one's watching," Dad used to say. That's character. The third floor was executive territory. Mahogany desks, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows with views that cost more than Marcus made in a year. He vacuumed in careful lines, dusted every surface, made sure the glass gleamed. In the reflection, he sometimes caught glimpses of the person he used to be, the engineering student with a full scholarship, a bright future, a life that made sense. That was before Emma's mother left, before his father's medical bills consumed their savings, before he had to drop out to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. But Marcus had a secret. During his lunch break, the 30 minutes between cleaning the executive suites and tackling the cafeteria, he didn't eat. He couldn't afford the cafeteria prices, and the sandwich from home would keep until dinner, when Emma needed to see him eat so she wouldn't worry. Instead, Marcus went to the 5th-floor conference room nobody used, the one with the broken lock and the whiteboard that maintenance kept forgetting to remove. And he worked on equations, physics problems, engineering calculations, the kind of work that once earned him a scholarship to MIT, the kind of work that still made his heart race with possibility, even if possibility felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. He'd filled 17 whiteboards over the past year, photographing them on his ancient smartphone before erasing the evidence. The photos lived in a folder labeled Emma's school pics, where nobody would think to look. It was his own private madness, he knew, like a pianist practicing on a painted keyboard, but it kept some part of him alive that otherwise might die. This particular Tuesday, Marcus was deep into a complex problem about energy efficiency in server cooling systems, the kind of problem Wellington Tech paid consultants 6 figures to solve. When he heard the door click open, his heart stopped. CEO Victoria Sterling stood in the doorway, her coffee cup frozen halfway to her lips, staring at the whiteboard covered in Marcus's calculations. For 3 eternal seconds, neither of them moved. Then Marcus grabbed the eraser, his hands shaking. "I'm sorry, Miss Sterling. I shouldn't be. I'll clean this immediately." "Stop." Her voice was quiet, absolute. "Don't erase it." She walked closer, her eyes scanning the equations with an intensity Marcus couldn't interpret. Was he fired? Was this it? Would Emma have to change schools again? "Where did you study?" Victoria asked. I didn't. I started at MIT, but MIT. She turned to face him fully for the first time. Really face him. Not the way people looked at custodians, through them, past them, like furniture with legs. "What year?" "I completed 2 years before I had to leave." Victoria set down her coffee cup and picked up a marker. She drew a line through one section of Marcus's work and wrote a correction. "Your thermal dynamics assumption here is outdated. We have new data as of 6 months ago." Marcus stared at the correction. She was right, and she knew enough to be right, which meant, "You're actually looking at this," he said, surprise making him forget his place. "You understand it." Something flickered across Victoria's face. Was that sadness? Recognition? "I used to be an engineer before I was a CEO. I still am when they let me be." She turned back to the whiteboard. "This approach, if it works, it could reduce our cooling costs by 40%, maybe more." The door clicked again. Victoria's assistant appeared, tablet in hand, stress etched across her face. "Miss Sterling, you have the board meeting in 10 minutes, and—" She noticed Marcus, noticed the whiteboard, and her expression shifted to confusion. "Cancel it," Victoria said, not looking away from the equations. "Ma'am, I can't." "Reschedule. Tell them I have an urgent matter that requires immediate attention." She finally turned to Marcus. "What's your name?" "Marcus Chen, ma'am." "Marcus Chen. Tomorrow morning I want you to come to my office, 7 a.m. Bring your phone with those photos you've been taking." His blood ran cold. She knew about the photos. "I'm not going to fire you, Marcus. I'm going to offer you something else, but we need to talk about what that looks like. For now," she gestured at the whiteboard, "finish this thought. I want to see where you're going." Then she was gone, her assistant scurrying behind her, leaving Marcus alone with his equations and the terrifying sensation that his life had just tilted on its axis. Before we continue with this incredible journey, I spent countless hours researching and crafting this story to bring you something truly meaningful. If stories like this touch your heart and you want to see more acts of kindness that restore faith in humanity, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It means the world to me and helps these important stories reach others who need to hear them. Now, let's see what happens next. Have you ever witnessed an act of kindness that completely changed your perspective? Share your story in the comments below.
Marcus didn't sleep that night. He lay on the pull-out couch, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a map of somewhere better, running through every possible scenario. Job offer? Lawsuit for using company resources? A test to see if he'd actually show up? At 5 a.m., he gave up pretending to rest. He showered in the cramped bathroom where the hot water lasted exactly 4 minutes, put on his cleanest uniform, and tried to look like someone who deserved a meeting with a CEO. Emma found him at the kitchen table, his phone open to those hidden photos, his hands trembling slightly. "Daddy, you look scared." He pulled her onto his lap, breathing in the strawberry scent of her discount shampoo. Just nervous, sweetheart. Sometimes nervous and excited feel the same. Is it a good nervous? I don't know yet, he answered honestly. But whatever happens, we'll be okay. We're always okay, right? She nodded against his chest, trusting him completely. The weight of that trust was heavier than any equation he'd ever solved. At 6:59 a.m., Marcus stood outside Victoria Sterling's office on the 20th floor, a floor he'd only ever cleaned at night when the executives were ghosts haunting empty desks. Her assistant, the same woman from yesterday, looked up from her computer. Her expression had shifted from yesterday's confusion to something almost soft. "Mr. Chen, she's expecting you. Go right in." The office was smaller than he'd imagined. Yes, there were the expected trappings, the view, the expensive furniture, the degrees from Stanford and Wharton on the wall. But there were also things that surprised him. A photo of Victoria in jeans and a hard hat at what looked like a construction site. A whiteboard covered in her own equations. A coffee maker that looked well used, not decorative. Victoria stood by the window, her back to him. "My father was a janitor," she said without turning around. "Worked nights at an office building in San Jose for 30 years. Died of a heart attack between the 3rd and 4th floor, mop still in his hand. He was 56. Marcus stayed silent, sensing she needed to finish. "He was also the smartest person I ever knew. Taught himself calculus from library books. Could have been anything, but life didn't give him that choice. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong color skin, wrong accent. Take your pick." She finally turned to face him. "I built this company partly because I could, and partly because he couldn't. And I swore that if I ever found someone like him, someone with brilliance trapped by circumstances, I wouldn't look away." She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Sit. Show me those photos." For the next 40 minutes, Marcus walked her through his work, the cooling system redesign, the energy efficiency algorithms, the server architecture improvements. With each image, he forgot to be nervous. This was his language, the one place where he still felt like himself. Victoria asked questions that proved she wasn't just humoring him. She challenged his assumptions, pointed out flaws, suggested improvements. They filled her whiteboard together, passing markers back and forth like jazz musicians trading solos. "This section here," she tapped the board, "this could save the company $12 million annually, minimum." Marcus blinked. $12 million? "Our current cooling costs are hemorrhaging money. Your approach, it's elegant, simple, the kind of solution that seems obvious only after someone brilliant shows you." She sat back in her chair, studying him. "Tell me why you left MIT." So he did. He told her about Emma's mother disappearing 3 weeks after the pregnancy test, about his father's uninsured hospital stay, the medical bills that devoured everything, about the impossible math of raising a child alone while paying for both rent and education, about the morning he withdrew from MIT, feeling like he was amputating part of his own soul. Victoria listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. "Here's what I'm thinking," she said finally. "I need an engineer. You need an opportunity. But it's not that simple, is it? You have a daughter, bills, a life that requires a steady paycheck. You can't just leap into uncertainty." "No, ma'am. So here's my offer. Keep your current position and salary. I won't take away your stability. But 3 afternoons a week, you work with my engineering team for an additional 40 hours per month, paid at junior engineer rates. Your cooling system project will be your first assignment. If it works, when it works, you'll get a percentage of the savings as a bonus." Marcus's mind raced through the math. Junior engineer rates were triple what he made as a custodian. 40 additional hours meant
He could pay off the medical debt, fix Emma's cavity, maybe even save for— Why? The question escaped before he could stop it. Victoria smiled, and for the first time Marcus saw past the CEO to the person underneath. Because my father never got this chance. Because talent is universal, but opportunity isn't. Because every time I walk past someone in a uniform, I wonder what brilliance we're wasting. She leaned forward, and honestly, because that cooling system design is genuinely brilliant, and I'd be an idiot not to use it. There's one more thing, Victoria said, pulling out a manila folder. I did some checking. Emma Chen, age 6, attends Riverside Elementary. Good school, but the district lines change next year. She'll be redistricted to Parkview. Marcus's stomach dropped. Parkview was where test scores went to die. Wellington Tech has a corporate partnership with Oakmont Academy. It's a private school, but we sponsor children of employees, full scholarship, tuition, meals, after-school care, everything. She slid the folder across the desk. Application deadline is Friday. I took the liberty of starting the paperwork. Marcus stared at the folder like it might bite him. Miss Sterling, I can't. You can. Emma's smart, Marcus. I pulled her school records. Hope you don't mind. Straight A's, despite everything she's been through. She deserves the same chances as kids whose parents can write checks without thinking. Victoria's voice softened. My father used to say that helping someone isn't charity if you're just leveling a playing field that was tilted to begin with. Marcus picked up the folder with shaking hands. Inside was Emma's photo, the school picture from last year, the one where she smiled despite the fact that her dress came from Goodwill. Someone had attached a sticky note. She has your eyes, smart eyes. Give her the world. I don't know what to say. Say you'll fill out the application. Say you'll let me invest in potential I'd be blind to ignore. Say you'll trust me enough to believe this isn't pity, it's good business and basic human decency mixed together. Victoria stood and extended her hand. What do you say, Marcus Chen? He stood too, his vision blurring slightly. He thought about his father, about Emma, about the last 3 years of existing instead of living. He thought about the whiteboard in the unused conference room, about the part of him that refused to die even when dying seemed easier. He shook her hand. I say yes. Thank you. Thank you doesn't even begin to cover it, but thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you're presenting that cooling system to the board in 3 months. Now go. I believe you have floors to clean before your shift ends. And Marcus, she smiled, start thinking about what you'll wear to engineering team meetings. The uniform is business casual, not navy blue. Marcus left her office feeling like he'd stepped through a door into a different version of his life. The hallway looked the same, but everything had changed. He was still a custodian. He was also, somehow, an engineer again. He was still poor, but he was rich in possibility. He pulled out his phone and texted Mrs. Park. Can you stay an extra hour today? I need to take Emma somewhere special. The response came immediately. Of course, dear. Everything okay? Marcus looked at the manila folder in his hands, at the application that could change his daughter's entire future. Everything is about to be perfect, he typed back. What would you do if you discovered someone with incredible talent living in such difficult circumstances? Let me know your thoughts below. I read every comment. The next 6 weeks unfolded like a dream Marcus kept waiting to wake up from. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons, he traded his mop for a laptop. The engineering team welcomed him with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Here was the custodian who'd somehow caught the CEO's attention. Marcus let his work speak for itself. Within 2 weeks, his cooling system prototype was showing a 38% efficiency improvement. By week 4, the skepticism had transformed into respect.
Sarah Chen, the lead engineer, no relation, though they joked about starting a Chen dynasty, started saving her toughest problems for Marcus's afternoons. "You see things differently," she told him over coffee one day. "The rest of us learned the conventional approaches. You taught yourself, so you don't know what's supposed to be impossible." But the transformation wasn't just professional. Victoria made good on the Oakmont Academy application. Emma's interview had been terrifying. Marcus in his one good shirt, Emma in a dress Mrs. Park had altered 3 times to make it fit. But Emma charmed them by explaining very seriously that her daddy was the smartest person in the whole world, even when he's cleaning toilets. The acceptance letter arrived on a Tuesday. Marcus cried in the laundry room where Emma couldn't see. Victoria started joining Marcus for lunch, not every day, but often enough that it became routine. They'd sit in her office, whiteboards filled with problems, eating sandwiches Marcus had learned to pack 2 of. She told him about building Wellington Tech from nothing, about the investors who'd laughed at her, about proving them catastrophically wrong. He told her about Emma's latest obsession with astronomy, about his father's old telescope that didn't work anymore, about dreams deferred but not forgotten. "Your daughter," Victoria said one afternoon, "she looks at you like you hung the moon. I'm terrified I'll disappoint her." "Marcus, you dropped out of MIT to keep her safe and fed. You work 2 jobs. You still find time to help with homework and make her laugh. That's not disappointing her. That's heroism in its most honest form." The words settled into the empty spaces Marcus didn't know needed filling. But not everyone celebrated the changes. The trouble started with Dale Morrison, Marcus's supervisor in the custodial department. He'd been watching Marcus leave early 3 days a week, had heard whispers about special treatment and CEO's pet project. "Jen, my office, now." Dale's office was a converted storage room that smelled like pine sol and resentment. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Want to explain why you're getting preferential treatment?" "I'm working additional hours for the engineering department. It's been approved." "By who? The CEO? You sleeping with her, Chen? That how this works?" The words landed like a punch. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. "That's completely inappropriate." "What's inappropriate is a custodian playing engineer. You think you're better than us now? Too good to push a mop?" "I still do my job. Every floor I'm assigned gets cleaned." "Barely. Your quality has dropped. I've had complaints." Dale pulled out a folder, not unlike the one Victoria had given Marcus, but this one felt like a weapon. 3 reports in the last month: missed spots, inadequate bathroom cleaning, trash not properly disposed of. Marcus's heart sank. The reports were dated for his engineering afternoons. Someone had been watching, documenting, building a case. "I can explain each of these." "Save it. Here's what's happening. You're going back to full-time custodial work. No more special projects, no more engineering playtime. You want to be an engineer? Go back to college. Until then, you're hired to clean, so clean." "But Ms. Sterling approved." "Ms. Sterling doesn't run the custodial department. I do, and I'm telling you, it stops now or you're terminated. Think about that daughter of yours before you argue." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Marcus knew Dale was right about one thing. He couldn't risk his base salary. Emma's school, their apartment, food, utilities, it all depended on that steady paycheck. "I need to talk to Miss Sterling about this." Dale smiled, and it wasn't kind. "Talk to whoever you want, but until HR and your direct supervisor, that's me, approve this arrangement in writing, you're in violation of your employment contract. Check your paperwork, Chen. You'll see I'm right." Marcus left Dale's office feeling like the ground had opened beneath him. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to his employment contract, the one he'd signed 3 years ago without reading carefully because he'd been desperate for any job. There it was, buried in Section 7.3. Employees may not engage in secondary work assignments without written approval from their direct supervisor and human resources. Victoria had arranged everything so quickly, so efficiently, but she'd missed this one bureaucratic detail, and Dale had found it like a shark finding blood in water. Marcus's phone buzzed. Victoria, cooling system presentation to the board moved up to next Friday. They're excited. Are you ready? He stared at the message. Ready to present to the board? He didn't even know if he'd still have a job by Friday. He called Mrs. Park, asked that she could keep Emma for an extra hour. Then he headed back to the 20th floor, his heart hammering against his ribs. Victoria's assistant looked up in surprise. "Marcus, you don't have an appointment. I need 5 minutes, please. It's urgent." Something in his face must have convinced her. She buzzed Victoria's office. "Mr. Chen is here. He says it's urgent." A pause. Then, "Send him in." Victoria took one look at Marcus's expression and closed her laptop. What happened? He explained everything. Dale's threats, the paperwork he'd missed, the impossible choice being forced on him. With each word, he watched her expression shift from concern to anger. That petty little... She caught herself, took a breath. "Okay, this is fixable. I'll call HR right now." "Marcus, what if it's not fixable? What if the company policy is actually on his side? I can't lose my base salary. Emma's school starts in 2 months. We have..." "Marcus, stop. Look at me." She waited until his panicked eyes met hers. "I didn't bring you this far to let some middle management Napoleon complex destroy it. Dale Morrison has been a problem for years. 3 harassment complaints, 2 discrimination issues, all swept under the rug by his previous supervisor. I've been looking for a legitimate reason to address it. I don't want to be the reason someone loses their job. He's the reason he'll lose his job. You're just the catalyst that brings his behavior into the light." She picked up her phone. "I'm calling our head of HR right now. We're going to do this right, by the book, every regulation followed to the letter. Dale wants to play bureaucracy games? Fine. I've been playing them before he learned to tie his shoes." But as Victoria dialed, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just painted a target on his back. Dale Morrison didn't seem like the type to lose gracefully, and men who didn't lose gracefully had ways of making life difficult, especially for people with everything to lose. Have you ever had to overcome obstacles to help someone you cared about? What challenges did you face? Share your experience below.
The next 72 hours felt like walking through fire. Victoria moved with the precision of a corporate general. By Tuesday morning, Marcus had official written approval from HR for his dual role, complete with revised job description, compensation structure, and explicit protections against retaliation. Dale Morrison was placed on administrative leave pending investigation by noon. But the damage had already been done in ways neither Victoria nor Marcus anticipated. Wednesday morning, Marcus arrived at work to find his locker had been vandalized. Someone had spray-painted "Sellout" across the door. Inside, his spare uniform was shredded, and a note in block letters read, "Traitors don't belong here." His hands shook as he held the note. Around him, other custodians arrived for their shifts. Some met his eyes with sympathy. Others looked away, pretending not to see. A few stared with open hostility. "They think you betrayed us," said Carlos, a custodian who'd worked at Wellington Tech for 15 years. He kept his voice low. "Dale spent 2 days telling everyone you think you're better than us now, that you're making us all look bad, that the CEO is only helping you because..." He trailed off, uncomfortable. "Because what? Come on, man, you know what people say. Pretty CEO, desperate single dad, they're making it ugly." Marcus felt sick. "It's not like that. She saw my work. She gave me a chance." "I believe you," Carlos said quietly, "but belief and gossip don't usually run on the same track." He glanced around and lowered his voice even further. "Watch yourself. Dale has friends, and some of them don't take kindly to people who get them in trouble." That evening was when everything came crashing down. Marcus had worked a double shift, his regular custodial hours, plus an emergency engineering meeting about the board presentation.
By the time he got home at 8:47 p.m., he was running on fumes and desperation. He opened the door to his apartment and froze. Emma was crying on the couch, Mrs. Park beside her looking frantic. The kitchen was a disaster. The sink had backed up, flooding the floor with murky water. The stove was sparking intermittently, and in the middle of it all, a pipe under the sink had burst, creating a growing puddle that was seeping toward the living room. "Marcus, thank God," Mrs. Park said, standing up. "I tried calling you. My phone died during the meeting. Emma, sweetheart, what happened?" "I'm sorry, Daddy. I was trying to wash my plate, and the water, it just kept coming and coming, and—" "It's not your fault, baby. It's not your fault." He surveyed the damage, his exhausted mind calculating costs he couldn't afford. Emergency plumber, possible electrical work, water damage to the floor. This would wipe out the small savings he'd managed to build. Mrs. Park gathered her things. "I have to get home. My husband needs his medication. Will you be okay?" "Yeah, thanks for staying with her." After Mrs. Park left, Marcus tried to tackle the immediate crisis. He shut off the water main, but the damage was done. The kitchen floor was soaked, the cabinet under the sink was ruined, and he had no idea if the wiring was safe. Emma sat on the couch, still crying softly. "I'm sorry, Daddy. I broke everything." "You didn't break anything. The pipes were old. This was going to happen eventually." He tried to sound reassuring, but inside he was screaming. This was it. This was the disaster that would unravel everything they'd been building. He pulled out his phone to call a plumber, but the battery was dead. Of course it was. That's when someone knocked on the door. Marcus opened it to find Victoria Sterling standing in his hallway, still in her work clothes, holding a toolbox and a bag from the hardware store. "Sarah mentioned you rushed out of the meeting looking panicked. Your phone went straight to voicemail." She noticed his expression. "What's wrong?" How do you even know where I live?" "HR records." "Marcus, what happened?" He gestured helplessly at the disaster behind him. "Pipe burst. I can't afford to fix this right now, and the landlord won't—" His voice cracked. "I'm sorry. You shouldn't be here. This isn't your problem." Victoria looked past him into the apartment, taking in the flooded kitchen, the sparking stove, Emma's tear-stained face on the couch. Then she set down the toolbox and rolled up her sleeves. "Show me where the water main is." "Miss Sterling, you don't have to." "I know I don't. I want to. Now show me the water main, and then let me see what we're working with." For the next 3 hours, Victoria Sterling, CEO of a Fortune 500 company, Stanford graduate, woman who commanded boardrooms, got on her hands and knees in Marcus Chen's kitchen and helped him fix a burst pipe. She held the flashlight while Marcus checked the connections. She mopped up water with old towels. She used tools from her own toolbox to tighten fittings and replace the broken section of pipe. When Marcus protested, she simply said, "My father was a janitor, remember? He taught me that honest work has nothing to do with job titles. Now hand me the wrench." Emma watched from the doorway, eyes wide. "Are you really the boss of Daddy's company?" "I am," Victoria said, not looking up from the pipe she was examining. "Then why are you cleaning our floor?" Victoria sat back on her heels, her expensive pants soaked, her hair falling out of its professional style. She looked at Emma with complete seriousness. "Because your daddy has spent the last 3 weeks helping me solve problems at my company. Now he has a problem, and I can help. That's what friends do. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO or a custodian or a 6-year-old girl. When someone you care about needs help, you help. Understand?" Emma nodded slowly. "Good. Now can you get me some more paper towels? We're winning this battle, but we need reinforcements." Emma ran to get the towels, a smile breaking through her worried expression. Marcus stood in his own kitchen, watching his CEO, his friend, scrub his floors with the same care he'd brought to her office building for 3 years. The role reversal was so complete, so unexpected, so profound, that he felt something break open inside his chest. "Victoria, "Don't," she said, wringing out a towel into the bucket. "Don't say you don't deserve this. Don't say it's too much. Don't apologize for having a crisis that isn't convenient." She looked up at him. "Marcus, you've been invisible for so long that you've forgotten what it's like when people actually see you. Get used to it, because I see you, and I'm not looking away." This was the moment. This was what the opening hook had promised. Not just charity, not just opportunity, not just a job offer in a pristine office with whiteboards and leather chairs. This was a CEO on her knees, scrubbing floors, refusing to let her friend drown in circumstances that weren't his fault. This was solidarity in its purest form. By 11:30 p.m., the pipe was fixed, the water was cleaned up, and the electrical issues were resolved enough to be safe until a professional could check them. Victoria made a note in her phone. "I'm sending an electrician tomorrow. Company expense. The building should have fixed this months ago. Consider it back rent for all the lunch breaks you spent solving my cooling system problem." "Victoria!" "Emma is asleep on the couch. Let's get her to bed, and then you need to sleep too. You have a board presentation in 3 days, and you look like you're about to fall over." They carried Emma to her room together. As Marcus tucked his daughter in, Victoria stood in the doorway, a small smile on her face. In the kitchen, as she gathered her toolbox, she turned to Marcus one more time. "You know what my father told me once? He said, 'Victoria, there are 2 kinds of successful people, those who forget where they came from, and those who never forget. Be the second kind.' Tonight reminded me why that matters." "Thank you." And this time the words felt big enough. "Not just for this, for all of it. Thank me by killing that presentation on Friday. Show those board members what I already know, that brilliance isn't about where you start, it's about what you do when someone finally gives you the chance to show what you're capable of." She left, and Marcus stood in his now clean kitchen, staring at the spot where the CEO of Wellington Tech had spent 3 hours on her knees, proving that kindness doesn't have a hierarchy.
Friday arrived like a storm on the horizon. The board presentation Marcus had been simultaneously anticipating and dreading. He wore a suit Victoria had insisted on buying him. "It's a business expense," she'd said when he protested. "You're representing the company. Let me do this." The boardroom was intimidating. 15 executives in expensive suits, watching him with expressions ranging from curious to skeptical. Marcus recognized some of them from late-night cleaning shifts, though they'd never noticed him before. Victoria introduced him simply. "This is Marcus Chen, the engineer who's about to save us $12 million annually." Marcus stepped up to the presentation screen, his mouth dry. Then he caught Victoria's eye. She nodded once, and he remembered. She'd been on her knees in his kitchen 3 days ago, refusing to let him fail. He wouldn't let her down now. For the next 45 minutes, Marcus walked them through his cooling system redesign. He showed them the inefficiencies in their current setup, the elegance of his solution, the projected cost savings. He answered technical questions with confidence, admitted when he didn't know something, and explained complex concepts in ways that the non-engineers understood. When he finished, the room was silent. Then James Patterson, the board chairman and notorious hard-ass, started clapping, slowly at first, then joined by others. Soon the entire room was applauding. "Mr. Sterling," James Patterson said, "I'd like to motion that we implement Mr. Chen's proposal immediately, and furthermore, that we promote Mr. Chen to senior engineer, effective today." Victoria's smile could have powered the building. "Seconded. All in favor?" The vote was unanimous. 3 months later, Marcus came home from work, his engineering work, to find Emma doing her homework at their new dining table in their new apartment. "How was school, sweetheart?" "Good. Miss Sterling came to Career Day. She told everyone about how you solve big problems." Tyler Morrison says his dad says you're a troublemaker, but Miss Sterling said you're a problem solver. Those are different." Marcus's jaw tightened. Dale Morrison, Tyler's son. The poison was still spreading, even from a distance. What else did she say? She said that the best people are the ones who help others, not just themselves. And then she helped me explain my science project to the class because I was nervous. "Daddy, is Miss Sterling your boss or your friend?" "Both." "Why?" "Because she looks at you the way Mrs. Park looks at Mr. Park, like you're important." Marcus smiled. "She's my friend, Emma, a really good friend who saw something in me when nobody else did. Like how you see things in me?" "Exactly like that." This story shows how one act of kindness can change everything. What's one way you could make a difference in someone's life today? Challenge yourself and share your commitment in the comments.
2 years have passed since that Tuesday morning when Marcus Chen walked into Victoria Sterling's office, terrified and desperate, carrying nothing but a phone full of equations and a heart full of hope. Today, Marcus is Wellington Tech's Director of Sustainable Engineering. His cooling system has been implemented across all Wellington facilities and licensed to 3 other Fortune 500 companies. The technology he developed on borrowed whiteboards during lunch breaks now saves corporations over $50 million annually in energy costs and reduces carbon emissions equivalent to taking 15,000 cars off the road. But if you ask Marcus what his greatest achievement is, he won't mention the patents or the promotions or the salary that still sometimes makes him check his bank account twice to believe it's real. He'll tell you about Emma. Emma Chen, now 8 years old, is thriving at Oakmont Academy. She's in the gifted program, captain of the math team, and her science fair project on sustainable energy, inspired by her father's work, won first place at the regional competition. She has friends, confidence, and a future that stretches out before her like an open sky. She also has something else. A father who comes home at reasonable hours, who can afford to take her to the planetarium whenever she wants, who never has to choose between fixing her cavity and paying the electric bill. Last month, Marcus bought her that telescope she'd always wanted, a real one with a motor drive and a computerized star map. They set it up on their apartment balcony, the balcony he used to dream about having, and spent 3 hours looking at Jupiter's moons. "Daddy," Emma said, her eye pressed to the viewfinder, "did you know that some people never get to see things like this?" "I know, sweetheart." "We should share it. We should invite kids who don't have telescopes." And that's how the Wellington Tech Junior Astronomy Club was born, open to children of all employees, free of charge, equipment provided. Because Emma Chen, at 8 years old, already understood what her father learned the hard way. Opportunity should be shared, not hoarded. Victoria Sterling is still CEO of Wellington Tech, but she's become something else too, a champion for hidden potential. The Sterling Scholarship Initiative has identified and promoted 47 employees in its first 2 years. A cafeteria worker is now in accounting. A security guard is training in cybersecurity. A shuttle bus driver is completing her engineering degree. Wellington Tech's employee retention has increased by 38%. Productivity is up, and somehow, though the business journals can't quite explain it, the company culture has shifted into something warmer, more human, more alive. Victoria and Marcus have coffee every Tuesday morning. Sometimes they discuss engineering problems. Sometimes they argue about the best pizza in the city. Sometimes Victoria shows Marcus photos from her weekend hiking trips, and Marcus shows her Emma's latest art project. They are colleagues, they are friends. They are proof that kindness and good business aren't opposites, they're partners. Last week, Victoria told Marcus something that made him laugh and cry at the same time. "My father would have loved you. He'd be so proud of what you've built, what we've built together."
"I wish I could have met him," Marcus said. "You did, in a way. Every time I see you mentoring the new scholarship recipients, explaining problems with patience and kindness, believing in people who've stopped believing in themselves, that's my father. That's his legacy living through both of us." This story isn't just about Marcus Chen or Victoria Sterling. It's not even really about Wellington Tech or engineering or corporate success. It's about something far more fundamental: the power of seeing people. How many Marcus Chens are out there right now, their brilliance hidden behind uniforms and circumstances? How many potential artists, engineers, teachers, and leaders are we overlooking because we don't look closely enough? Marcus's transformation didn't happen because he suddenly became talented. He was always talented. It happened because someone finally noticed. Someone cared enough to look past the surface, past the assumptions, past the easy categorizations we use to organize our world. Victoria didn't save Marcus. She gave him a chance to save himself. There's a crucial difference. And here's the truth that matters most. You don't need to be a CEO to change someone's life. You don't need wealth or power or a corporate scholarship program. You just need to see people, really see them. The barista who serves your coffee might be a poet. The delivery driver might be a philosopher. The person cleaning your office might be solving equations in their head that could change the world. What if we all looked a little closer? What if we asked one more question, listened one more minute, cared just enough to notice the potential hiding in plain sight? Marcus Chen was invisible for 3 years. 3 years of walking past executives who never saw him, never wondered about the person behind the mop, never considered that brilliance doesn't announce itself with expensive clothes and confident handshakes. How many people are invisible to you? That's not a judgment, it's an invitation to pay attention, to be curious about the stories people carry, to recognize that everyone you meet is fighting battles you know nothing about and harboring dreams you haven't asked about. Victoria Sterling saw Marcus Chen. That simple act of seeing, really seeing, created ripples that are still spreading. Emma's future changed. 47 other employees found new paths. Thousands of tons of carbon emissions were prevented. Millions of dollars were saved. All because someone looked up from their coffee and paid attention to the person in front of them. Stories like this remind us that extraordinary kindness exists all around us, waiting to be practiced, waiting to be recognized, waiting to change the world in ways both small and profound. If this touched your heart, please like this video. It helps more people discover these inspiring stories of human connection and second chances. Subscribe for more tales of kindness that restore your faith in humanity, that remind you we're all capable of being someone's miracle. And most importantly, look for opportunities in your own life to be someone's unexpected blessing. Maybe it's the barista who serves your lunch, or the one who delivers your packages, or the person sitting next to you on the bus. Maybe they're not solving engineering equations in secret, but they're definitely carrying dreams, fighting battles, and deserving of being seen. What act of kindness will you perform this week? It doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be genuine. Let me know in the comments below. I want to hear about the ways you're choosing to see people, to lift them up, to be the Victoria Sterling in someone's Marcus Chen story. Because here's the secret Victoria and Marcus learned. Kindness isn't a one-way street. When you help someone rise, you rise too. When you invest in someone's potential, you expand your own. When you see someone truly, you become more fully seen yourself. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being the kind of person who watches a 35-minute video about a custodian and a CEO, because you believe, as I believe, as we all should believe, that every person matters, every story deserves to be told, and every act of kindness creates ripples that reach farther than we can measure. Remember, you have the power to change someone's entire world. Will you use it?